So what I'm first doing here is I've made a stock using corn cobs and kombu, the seaweed kombu, and potatoes, and sauteed potatoes, using small red potatoes here. And the combo is to give it a briny taste. And of course the corn and the onions give it a sweet and savory taste. So fishing out the corn cobs, and we know that the potatoes are done when you can mash them against the side of the Dutch oven and they come apart. And then here's the kombu. And as you can see, the potatoes are nice and soft. We'll set this aside. Now, one of the things I wanted to do in this series was to make recipes using my community-supported agriculture box. And so I am using some corn and some onions and some green beans and some garlic and some tomatoes from my box. But I've supplemented with some carrots from the grocery store, and of course the kombu also is from a grocery store. Now, the recipe calls for blending the broth so that you don't have the potatoes in pieces. So I'll use my immersion blender. Oops. This is why it's a good idea to wear an apron. Something I don't always remember to do. Now, I went to this retreat because at that time, even though I was doing my graduate degree, I thought, I've had an interest and passion for vegetarian cooking for so long. I'm curious whether I would like to do something with it. And so because I was not so now I'm going to found a use for my dips and chips platter. And cool idea, and also a little bit more stylish. Putting in the diced carrot, and the sliced green beans, which I am using in place of the celery, which I didn't have. So I took this class because I knew I had a curiosity about learning more about vegetarian cooking, but because I wasn't somebody who was a tech person who could quit my lucrative job to transition to a new career, I decided to take this workshop as part of a vacation to Canada and try it out and see how I felt about this vegetarian cooking school as sort of a trial run. And as it turned out, this is similar to what people do when they learn how to cook the old-fashioned way within the French system, which was learning directly as an apprentice from people who are chefs in established kitchens. So this was an opportunity for me to try out the school and to try out a cooking course, before I committed to doing a full-flung, degree, culinary degree. and I've maintained an interest in vegetarian cooking while I was doing something else, which is what many people do when they're thinking about transition to another career. So while my carrots and green beans and potatoes are cooking, I'll show you that I also had taken the corn off of the cobs, and so that is going to go in last. We need to add some of this chopped garlic. And for vegetarians, often, because a lot of cooking schools are meat-based cuisines, one of the reasons why I did this particular workshop was because the Natural Gourmet Cooking School in New York, it's since changed its name, was one of the few vegetarian cooking schools in the country. And so I wanted to see about doing a curriculum that would be primarily vegetarian, instead of being taught to cook a lot of food that I wasn't going to eat anyway. And so while my remaining vegetables are coming up, I have also chopped up some tomatoes, and even though the recipe calls for a pound of tomatoes, I'll put the recipe in the details section, in the comments section, so you have access to it. I didn't want to use up all of my tomatoes, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the chopped tomatoes as a garnish, so we still get that tart, zingy taste without actually adding all of the tomatoes to the broth. The recipe also calls for celery, which I didn't have, but my CSA box did come with some pea shoots, and so I thought the pea shoots along with the green beans would give a herbaceous, sweet taste that otherwise would have come along with the celery and the lettuce, because it calls for lettuce. So one of the things that, when you're using a CSA box, is often you're needing to sort of swap out things or be a little bit creative as to how you are using the ingredients that you have available. So I'm going to test whether how done my carrots are and green beans. They're still a little crunchy. I want to make sure, of course, to add the vegetables that are the most tender the last, so that we still maintain their texture without overcooking them. So what's interesting about this recipe is also with the kombu is, when I was at Hollyhock is in a part of North America and the Canadian Northwest in which they have a number of climate zones that come together. And so one of the reasons why California cuisines developed the way it did, with the importance of local, fresh ingredients, the farm-to-table method, was because it was these agricultural areas in which you would have these ingredients available year-round. Well, in the Midwest, we don't always necessarily have that. So this recipe is good for summer in many parts of the northern part of the United States. But, we need to adapt what ingredients we have when we have them available. So now that our root vegetables have had more of a chance to cook, I'm going to add my corn kernels. And these should only take a minute or so to cook. Take the time that's cooking to wash my hands. And also, when you go to the market, if you're not sure which is kombu, though you wouldn't be restricted to using kombu if you had nori available, that also would work. But this is the type of seaweed that I'm cooking with. And another way that you can use this is, and this is another thing that I learned in this cooking retreat, is to use this as a way to season beans when you're cooking them from dried. So I'm going to, this is turning out to, because it's a chowder, it's thicker than, it's more, as Rachel Ray would have said, a soup rather than a brothy soup. And the other ingredient that this calls for is pepper. So I'll grind some pepper into it. This is a very colorful soup. Okay, I think we're about done here. Turn off my induction burner. So as you can see, there are onions and oranges and greens and yellows and the earthiness of the potatoes. And a little bit of this broth. And then I will add some of my tomatoes. And these are some of my pea shoots. So they have that grassy, sweet flavor. And also, as a vegetarian, we have protein from the pea shoots, we have protein from the corn, as well as the other vegetables, but certainly the corn and the pea shoots have more protein than the other vegetables. So I am stirring the soup to wilt the pea shoots a bit, and we'll give this a taste with some of the carrots and some of the green beans. Sweet broth, sweetness from the carrots and the corn, and that savoriness from the onions and the garlic comes through. And it's a really nice summer soup that uses produce that it's the height of its freshness at this time of year, and is also a chance for you to try out some ingredients that may be in your CSA boxes or produce boxes this summer.